Hello, everyone. Welcome to EMD Media. Today, we'll be covering the Somalia election reflections. And it's my pleasure to have Faisal Roble. Faisal Roble is a regular panelist in the Edge panel every Friday and has been also on special shows here on EMD Media. He's well read and with a lot of experience in the Horn of Africa. And today we'll be briefly talking about what happened yesterday in Somalia in terms of the election. And we will start with the background. So, yesterday it was very interesting for all of us who are interested in the Horn of Africa to follow the election. But Faisal will give us insight in terms of the background, how the election went, and what that implies in terms of Somalia and the Horn in general. Faisal, again, great to have you back to the Unity Media Show.
Thank you very much, Getacho. Very happy to be here with you.
Great. So yesterday we saw a live televised on the national TV, and for me, given the region, the experience with elections, and how they usually are accompanied with a lot of controversies. What transpired yesterday in Mogadishu seems to be very transparent in my view, but none can speak to this subject matter than people like you. So take us maybe to give us an idea on what was going on before the election and what happened yesterday. So to take us to the background to this election.
Thank you very much. So, after Somalia reached what we call a political agreement following the civil war, and then after so many years of entanglement, political entanglement, where the political parties and groups and forces have had so many meetings, including some in Addis Ababa and Sodare in the 90s and the early parts of 2000. Finally, they came to reach a point where A, they all agreed on a draft constitution that is democratic. And in that constitution, B, there is a requirement that the president be elected, indirectly elected by a constituent assembly collected from the different social groups, i.e., in the Somali context, clans and geographies. And that should happen every 4 years, both for the legislative house, both upper house and lower house, as well as for the president who is elected by the legislative body, which consists of 329 members, 274, 75 of them being the lower house, and the remainder the upper house, which is very much less number, and that was done purposefully like in other country. So basically the 275 are really this time elected by the largest number of people because the room of election was expanded, and the 54 senators were also elected at the regional level. They elected internally yesterday, as you saw, the president who will pick or nominate a prime minister and formation of the cabinet. What's very important in the case of Somalia is finally, you can say finally, there have been an understanding that nobody, no social group or clan or political party can usurp power without the consent of the people, in this case, the consent of the people being represented by the parliament. I think any group, any power, any candidate have come to realize that Mohammed Abdullahi Farmajo, who is vacating the office, extended his term for about 1 year, and he thought he can benefit from that. But what happened to Getachew is that one illegal extension by Mohammed Abdullahi Farmajo galvanized all the political and social groups in the country that he basically lost his standing among the Somali people. So yesterday was an affirmation that Somalia, no matter what happens, despite all the challenges, political, social, economic challenges, as well as climate change, they are there to uphold the rule of law and continue election as they have set out from the beginning. What was very interesting was, as you can see from this picture, the guy who is at the far right, who is holding his head, is the former prime minister who served Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo for 3.5 years and was dismissed by the parliament because of a conflict between him and Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo. Then along that line, you have Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo, who is the president when the election was taking place. His contender, Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, who defeated him, and the guy with the glasses who is next to Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, the president-elect, is the president of Puntland, who was also vying for the position. And then the other one I didn't mention is Ahmed Sharif, who was also president prior to Hassan Sheikh Mohamud. These are people who all fought over the power of the country in a peaceful manner, sitting in front of the Somali public, televised by the national TV, each and everyone just waiting for the political infrastructure and the campaign that they carried and the fruit that will come out of that. Nobody is using the army, nobody is using the military, nobody is using anything else or intimidation. This is really a teaching lesson, and we can go in depth what this means to the rest of us. But Somalia has been on the trajectory of moving from an autocratic dictatorial system of the Ziad Barre years to a devastated civil war era where even warlords reigned in most parts of the country, to a very slow but steadily improving democratic governance. And what is very interesting to everybody who is watching today is that all these guys who are political animals are determined to uphold the rule of law. And if they have to win, they want to win by the palette, not by the gun.
Very interesting indeed. Yeah. I mean, for those who haven't watched this, I think broadcast, they should. I mean, it's worth mentioning that these candidates are sitting in front of these glass boxes and they are watching everything. Each one are putting their ballots there, and it's very interesting. So the outcome, of course, has been very important news for the region and for Somalia. So this is a president-elect Hassan Sheikh Mohamud. And maybe, if we can zoom in into the day, what transpired yesterday, and because there were 3 phases of this, so there were 36 candidates, if I'm not wrong. So can you walk us through what happened yesterday?
So the competition or the election started with 39 candidates. I think one dropped out. So 38 candidates, both heavyweights and lightweights. Some people who just want to make the mark and exercise their freedom to run and show that the rules are played equally. And so the first round promotes the top 4 people who scored the highest. So in the first round, former President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo, President-elect Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, whom you see here, he's the former Prime Minister that Farmajo fired after 3.5 years, Hassan Khaire, and the President of Puntland, promoted out of the first round to the second round. The second round, again, those 4 candidates run, and then the 2 top people promoted to the third round. And the 2 top people for the third and final round were President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo and then Hassan Sheikh Mohamud. I think they got 80 for Farmajo and something, and Hassan Sheikh Mohamud about 100 something, and the others were for the other two candidates. That's where the coalition building comes. Who is, going to align with whom based on their philosophies, their understanding, their struggles in the past. I think there is a stipulation, although we don't know that Hassan Sheikh Mohamud got the endorsement of all the little guys who got 5, 10, 15 earlier and told their people, go ahead and vote for Hassan Sheikh Mohamud. And then a lot of people are theorizing that probably Hassan Sheikh Mohamud also benefited from the big numbers that the president of Puntland collected in the second round, which was in the rounds of the 60 plus. Whether Hassan Khaire, who was the former prime minister, gave any numbers to Hassan Sheikh Mohamud as the winner is not known. But his people, once you go through the second round, the third round frees electorates, and they can go anywhere they want. They can go for their heart. They break ranks with the loyalty that they had for the first round and the second round for somebody. And the upset and the winning numbers for President-elect Hassan Sheikh Mohamud was 212, and the remainder went to Farmacho. People were surprised the margin of defeat that former President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmacho received. It was a big margin when compared to previous two elections that we have televised. What's very interesting, I like just to add for the audience, is Somalis are now accustomed to this televised competition every 4 years. Take a few months here and there, depending on what happens technically. And throughout the Somali-speaking world, the diaspora, Jigjiga was one of the heaviest places in Redawa where people were watching the election. The same in Kenya, the same in Djibouti, and forget the rest of Somalia. And also the regional elections. Somalia is a federal system, so it has 5, 6 regional governments. Even the regional elections are televised now. So this is becoming what I call, Getachew, the new political culture of Somalis. So transparency is a big thing for that night. Nobody can really say I was cheated or somebody stole my numbers. It's all in the eyes of the public.
Very interesting indeed. Yeah. I think when we conclude this show, we will be maybe you will give us your insight what it means to the region and to Ethiopia and so on. But yesterday, I mean, you had a very long day, a long night maybe as well. But after that, you took time to reflect on that. For those who haven't followed Faisal before, like I mentioned, not only on his panel, but he regularly writes on World Hair News. So you reflected on that yesterday, welcoming President-elect Hassan Sheikh Mohamud. Maybe, who is Hassan Sheikh Mohamud?
Yes. Hassan Sheikh Mohamud came into the political activism of Somalia following the Somali civil war. I wrote an article in 2012 when he was competing for the position, and I cited one endearing value that I mentioned, which was throughout the civil war era, he did not leave home. He worked in Somalia. He worked for the indigents, doing public work, public services through NGOs. That's one thing that none of them had, and he won. And I endorsed him at that time. However, I withdrew my endorsement at that particular after a few years because I had difference with him when it comes to federalism. I was a big, fan of federalism. I felt a little bit not 100% in line. But in 2017, after he lost the power, I met his general managers, two of them, and we discussed. And one thing that I really liked about his nature was that they told me that Hassan took criticism, read criticism, took what is good about it and what he agrees and what he doesn't agree. So I learned from them that some of the things that I was criticizing for him were, as a matter of fact, a teaching moment for them, and they corrected. And his two last years, the last 2 years of his term, were the most productive years in his administration. He completed the Federation of Somalia. He brought tangible peace. He brought back Somalia's international recognition, where Obama met him at the White House. I mean, he pacified Mogadishu. Whatever is existing today in terms of governance infrastructure, Hassan Sheikh Mohamud attained that last 2 years. What showed me was that here is some guy who really listens to his critique and gets the input from his critique, as opposed. And from there on, I've been watching. At times, connecting with his managers, having conversations with his managers, and he has been building, borrowing from his NGO type grassroots development. The last 5 years he was out of office, he has been building coalitions, grassroots movement, infrastructure for his political gain that you see today. So it comes, you saw yesterday comes on the heels of two things. One, he's a man who learns from his mistakes, and he takes those challenges and turns them into an opportunity. At least what I have seen with him. And number two, he never gets tired. Him and his lieutenants, and I know them very well, and I give credit to them. Him and his lieutenants believe in the power of coalition building, and they have been working day in, day out on that. Even when we meet at conferences in Djibouti, in Nairobi, they come to you and they show you their roadmap and how they are reaching to different stakeholders and different communities within the Somali. So it is really very interesting to see how his team and himself turned the public service of the NGO work into a political movement that gives some tangible results. Now,
Talking
yeah, go ahead. And so yesterday, as you saw, he declared, he said he would like to continue his work for Somalia, and he likes to create a Somalia that lives peaceful with the world and with itself. And I think that's going to define his foreign policy, that he will reach out to our neighbors and delete the militaristic aspect of our regional cooperation and promote brotherly coexistence, more based on social, economic, and climate change collaboration as opposed to militaristic kind of thing. He will also show commitment, at least within the Somalia context, so that people can learn from him. He will show commitment to democratization process.
Great. Talking about coalition, you mentioned in your article from yesterday that the process itself, that Hassan Sheikh Mohamud specifically as well, he went beyond clan coalition. So some of these votes he received are from other clans or from people, delegates who were supposed to actually, they belong to the same clan with Formaggio. Uh, I was looking at the regional reactions, but specifically with Ethiopia, and we saw message coming from Mustafa, from Abiy Ahmed, as well as from Tigray, from Magala. And maybe, talking about the reaction from Ethiopia, even the whole region and so on, how do you assess how Hassan Sheikh Mohammed is received in the region and beyond?
Yes, I think first of all, the diplomatic niceties coming from all angles is welcome. Yeah, that is just a given. Whether it was Mustafa, who was very much in alliance with Farmacho, or Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, who is part of the axis of power that some Ethiopians are calling the axis of autocratic rule. The three of them, Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo, Isaias Afwerki, and Abiy. But I think those are welcomed. So is Mustafa's penning of nice words is also welcomed. The same with the Tigray state government, to also wish Hassan Mohamud, success. All those are welcome. But the crux of the matter is the feelings of the people of the Horn, particularly the feelings of Ethiopians. I think, as you know, Ethiopians are in a very, very serious situation when it comes to their governance and democratic rights. They are caught between hard place and rock. On the one hand, a foreign country, Isaias Afewerki, with all his mighty, is hammering, bombardments and war and causing starvation, not only now to Tigray, but also to in Oromia, and also to, from political point of view, destabilizing the Amhara region. So here is that's one situation that you have. But I think the most interesting thing I've been seeing in the social media is how the people of Ethiopia, irregardless of what camp they are, want to copy and wish that they would have the same thing that the people of Somalia received. Simple, pure, unadulterated practice of democracy that could be primitive, that could be rude and slow process, but in Somalia they see the possibility of politics. They really, especially at this particular time, where people are not only being denied the rights to exercise politics, but under starvation and famine and inter-ethnic conflict and all that, they realized that politics can avoid all that. And Somalia, until recently, Getachew was the epitome of a failed state. Today, for Ethiopians to look up to Somalia as a great example to copy, if possible, tells you that A, there is always hope in our humanity, and B, I think soon or later, the people of Ethiopia would practice and do the same thing that Somalis, their brothers across the board, did. No matter who tries to stop, how long it takes, Somalia and the election of Hassan Sheikh Mohamud shows the elasticity of human capacity to recreate their own state despite whatever a dictator imposes on them. And I think I've been reading social media. I'm honestly impressed how deep well-wishing Ethiopians are expressing for the election of Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, not because of anything, but because of the fact that they wish their leaders could do the same thing that he has done.
Very interesting observation. Yeah. Uh, I mean, like you said, what happened in Mogadishu yesterday is not because of everything is perfect, but despite the imperfections, in terms of security, all that, and so on. So the resilience and the calm, and even to his credit, Farmajo didn't take a long time before congratulating Hassan Sheikh Mohammed. One thing that may be personal to me as well is the role that was played by the Prime Minister. I'm talking about personal here because I feel, uh, given he was my former classmate from grad studies in Europe, uh, but when I read on what was happening the past months in terms of even pushing him out and so on, and keeping the process on track. Can you speak to that subject, Faisal?
Yeah, I didn't know you guys were classmates, but that's good. And one of these days, hopefully, you guys will reconnect. Yeah, Roble has shown personal stamina and strength when he became a prime minister for a short period of time. His mandate was to finish the election, and he had the support of everybody, including the international donors. And I think the now uh, the now leaving president tried to manipulate through many ways, through clan, through threatening and intimidation and what have you. Roble has shown to the Somali people that an individual can make a history. Of course, often history is made by the masses, but I think individuals also play a significant role. I think Roble exemplifies that individual who makes history possible by using the social, political, and cultural norms that a society has. Without him, I don't know if it would have been possible for Somalia to transition and cut the current president, the leaving president's term short so that elections should take place. Farmajo would have liked to extend to another year. I don't think he would have done it, but I think Roble's decisiveness to and now I understand the engineering background. He was using his Microsoft timeline, making sure he's the first one I have seen sticking to a very strict timeline. Previous prime minister, one of the issues that really plagued Somalia, and I'm glad I know where it was coming from for him, because I work with a lot of engineers and they are religious when it comes to timeline with a sophisticated software. Roble is the first one I have seen in the last few years who stuck with timeline and implemented the program based on the timeline. And I think Somalis would hold him dear for a long time. Now, what he will do from now on, I don't know. He's very young. He has a lot of energy, and a lot of credit is given to him by the Somalis. And you and I will be watching him. And I hope when he gets time, I'll try to invite him to your show, hopefully.
Great, yeah. Maybe before I think he became the prime minister. He was with ILO with the UN. So
Yes.
uh, if he's going back, we'll follow up. And yeah, maybe it's now time to come to MD Media and talk about his experience as playing a critical role in this Somalia election. Before parting words, Faisal, how do you see now he has the president elect will establish, I mean, he will elect appoint a prime minister, I guess, and the prime minister will have cabinet and talk to that subject. And maybe if you can speak to that as well as how you see the dynamics changing, because like you said, what happened in the Horn of Africa, in Ethiopia, specifically in Tigray, many people are hoping this is a harbinger of what might come as a positive development in the Horn in general, and so on. So what is your reading with Formaggio gone and Hassan Sheikh Mohamud replacing and entering the palace in Mogadishu?
Yeah. So Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, from my understanding, is a believer of cooperation and collaboration with the region, but in a fair and more peaceful way. This coalition was never supported. It was actually condemned by the Somali parliament, and it was never legal from the Somali constitutional point of view because it was never rectified. So it's dead on arrival in a way. That coalition that we have seen. Hassan Sheikh Mohamud is mainly, from what I know him, is a pacifist. So he doesn't like wars and conflict. So I don't think he will ever approve any conflict within Ethiopia. He will not push for the war. He probably, if he is asked, and this is my own estimate, he will try to be an elderly man to mediate between Tigray and Abiy. If that's asked, I think because of his values and what have you, and if he would not really support the war-based kind of illegal coalition that was done behind closed doors. Having said that, he didn't also, and I don't think he would approve the isolation that that coalition imposed on Djibouti, a sister country that paid a lot of cost for the pacification of Somalia. As you know, Djibouti has been with Somalia all along, but also since 2000. Uh, uh, I think Hassan could play a healing role in the region because when Ethiopia invaded Somalia in 2007, it was a painful thing for Somalis all over. And I think now he sees the entire region, particularly Ethiopia, burning in its own, fire. So uh, he may try to even talk to the different groups when he gets time. That may not be his priority, but I bet he would be a peacemaker. I think uh, uh, I don't think he would, by any means, Hassan be part of a conflict within Ethiopia. He even was like that before when he was a president. He was trying to even soften the wall is between Ogaden National Liberation Front and the Ethiopian government of the time. I think he will continue that. He will wish that the Somali people all over get their rights and freedom in the best way and work and collaborate with their people, with the people that they live across or nearby. But it's my take that Hassan will not nourish that the what we have seen with Farmacho, where allegedly 3,000 Somali soldiers who were trained in Eritrea have been diverted to the civil war in Ethiopia. Somalia has seen enough civil war, as you know, Getachew. Yeah, Somalia was reduced from the strongest sub-Saharan African country in terms of military, including taking the Derg down to at one point to a devastated, failed state. Hassan is one of those people who have been doing grassroots work to bring back that failed state. If you remember, I started my talk by saying that he never left the country. Everybody else that you see left the country one way or another, or one time he did not, and that's the credit that he has. He's a grassroots type. He's a pacifist, as I told you, and war is never his first or second or third option. And I think if Abiy and Dr. Debretsion and Prime Minister Abiy would listen, Hassan would be somebody who can tell them what it is to be burned in your own fire as a nation. And I think he has that maturity, lived experience, what we call in America, lived experience that nobody has to tell you, or you don't read from book, but you have seen the fire by yourself. And I think as an elder statesman in maturity, who's not power hungry, unlike Isaias Afewerk, I think he can be an asset to the region in general.
Very important indeed. In fact, somewhere talking about the learning curve issue as well, given that he was a president between 2012 and 2017, knowing the issues, all the dynamics, and regional and domestic. I think that's a very positive in terms of how we will start and so on. We'll be following. And Faisal?
No, you asked me one thing. I think that Hassan Sheikh Mohamud won the presidency. Now is the hard work, both internally and externally. I think the first challenge is seating a prime minister, which in itself has its own political dynamics. Even the region is the clan, the political parties, the ones who sided with him versus the ones who sided against him. All that balancing comes through the prime minister and the cabinet and the sub-cabinets that he will be establishing. Then can he only start working on the bigger issues and the long journey of the 4+ years that he may have. So absolutely, but focusing on the regional also to really be an elder's man for the burning side of his neighbor Ethiopia is something that we have to encourage him to do.
Great. That is, what we want to see in every country in the region and beyond. And Faisal, as usual, thank you for your insightful contribution, and hope to see you in the H panel.
Thank you, Getachew. Bye-bye. Bye.
A good one. Bye. You have been following our conversation with Faisal Roble on Somalia election that concluded yesterday with the election of President-elect Hassan Sheikh Mohamud. And we wish President-elect Hassan Sheikh Mohamud the best. And I want to personally wish as well best wishes to my former classmate Roble in his next challenge outside the Prime Ministership of Somalia. That was the show for today. On Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, you will listen to Yosef Gabrehwat with his weekly in-depth with Yosef G. This week, he will be taking the subject of Eritrea and its taking war as the solution for everything. And that will be at 4 p.m. Eastern Time for that. And then on May 29th, we'll be starting a new show that will be every other Sunday with Professor Shetel Tromvol. And that will be the Horn Peace and Conflict Thermometer, and send us your questions, any questions that you have on peace and conflict in the Horn, and Shuttle Trumbull will be happy to answer your questions. That was it for today. Bye from here.